All right, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis. This beautiful 13th day of September, the year of our Lord 2024. Hope everyone is well. For the guys who've joined us this week, Karibuni sana. In case you're wondering where Mitch is, he is here. He is working in the back office today. In case you're wondering who the hell I am, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So I've been in the back office the whole week, but today I'm here. I will be your host doing the most. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will definitely be getting back to you, but I will also be looking at the questions more specifically in the Q&A section, but towards the very tail end of this webinar. But as always, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at the watch list. Of course, comparing what we have today in comparison to what we did end up having yesterday. So you can see yesterday, the 12th of September, basically we're watching out to see whether we could get selling opportunities on the Swiss franc, the US dollar, the euro, mixing and matching that up with everything on the buy side. Today, you can see that there's been quite a shift of things. You can see the US 30 and also silver have joined the buy side, and also the Canadian dollar has gone to the sell side. So feel free to take note of that. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we do have the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region here. So we did want to see maybe price coming back in within this region to look for some buying opportunities, or maybe the market breaking and holding above this area. But you can see that the market just fooled around within this region, broke to the upside. But you can see that there were no big boys who are there. And also when the market came back in on the pullback within here, it really struggled, to hold to the upside. And you can see that there was not really much of a buying opportunity on this one yesterday. And as much as price has come back in within that area, but it's not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities today. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere around here. So at around 9, wanted to see the price break to the downside, possibly hold on the pullback, maybe to look for sales, or maybe the price coming back in within here. Can see that it came back in within this region. Although the market did really take quite a bit of time before it could come to the downside, it really needed a lot of patience. But unfortunately, I don't think by the time the market started to move to the downside, any of us were on the charts at that point in time, because this was around 10:30, 11 p.m., at times. So as much as the sell did end up happening, but in terms of the timing, could have been a bit hard on that one. But unfortunately, also for today, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can trade. So last but not least, for review, we do have the euro against the Canadian dollar. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Unfortunately, this one, there were no selling opportunities that were available yesterday. You can't see that in the morning when we're looking at the price, or the charts price was somewhere within here. We did want to see the market break and hold beneath this region, or maybe come back in within here and give us something, to tell us that we should look for sales there. But unfortunately, there was really nothing there, and also nothing at the top, somewhere within this region right here. The market completely went to the upside. There were also some interest rate news events that came out for the euro yesterday. And as much as they came out weak, maybe to some extent did end up playing a part, pushing that price to the upside. But of course, like we always point out, in case the market breaks above the red SNR to the upside, then at that point in time, there's definitely no trade for us. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have yesterday, that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list today. So we can look at screenshot that we did get here. This is from George. George Chege, if you're here, if you're watching from YouTube, shout out to you. This is good. This is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So it seems that you got a buy somewhere within this region right here, as the market was, possibly breaking to the upside within this region right here. And of course, I can see that your stop loss is already above your point of entry once the market started to move in your favor. So this is good. A bit of a tricky situation in terms of how you ended up getting the buy within there. But at least once the market continued to move in your favor, you did manage. And of course, at least that did not lead to any losses whatsoever. So shout out to you, George, for that. So guys, remember, if you do get any trades, feel free to send them in to us, whether good or bad. We're more than happy to see what you guys are up to on the charts. And of course, we're here to celebrate your wins, not to really ask you for any money. But of course, if you're also having issues on the charts, then at least we can also help in pointing out what could be wrong and maybe how you can end up changing that for the better. So feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details should be there on the chat box, and you can send them in to us via WhatsApp. And also feel free to reach out to us with the same contact details in case you do have any issues, and we will also see how best we can end up helping you. So I guess we can end up shifting gears into matters today. So for the guys who've just checked in, feel free to take note what the watch list is going to be looking like today. So this is what the plan is going to be. In terms of the fundamentals, there's already been two fundamentals that have already been out for today. But in terms of the London session, there's not really much, only one Euro news event and a bunch of USDs and Canadian dollar news events that are going to be coming out. So still could find some decent activity happening during the US session. But of course, it doesn't mean that during the London session, things are not going to be moving. So still watch out for setups in as much as there isn't much in terms of the fundamental front. So this is the watch list. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc pairs. We're going to mix and match up the Swiss franc with everything on the buy side, move on to the USD, the Euro, and last but not least, the cards. Then we'll finish off with the indices and the commodities. So the first one off the line, this is the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. Now, for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right here that Mitch had pointed out. Aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. We're expecting price to possibly come back in within this region. You can see that in the morning price was somewhere within this area right here. Of course, maybe we're expecting maybe an attempt of the buyers to break this area to the upside. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but you can see that the market did end up coming in lower. And if you did end up getting the sales maybe on this pullback coming down, especially if the sellers did actually show up, somewhere within this region right here, could have been some sales coming down. You can see that the market broke to the downside, pulled back in within here. Though by the time the pullback came back in, it was a bit of a tricky situation in terms of timing, but nonetheless, today we're going to still be back at it. So today, these are the three areas we're going to be watching out for. So these are the three areas we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities and also areas where we can manage our trades. So right now, the market is down within an area of support. So we will be hoping maybe the market can actually pull back in within this area, maybe for some sort of good selling opportunity here. You can't see that the market broke this region to the downside. So I will be watching out to see whether I could get some sales within there to come down. If not, then hopefully the market breaks beneath this region to the downside. Right now, don't look for the sales because you're not too sure how the buyers, within this area could actually react. So it's better to actually wait and see if you can't get the breach. Then on the pullback, you could jump in on the selling opportunities. And like I pointed out, alternatively, you could find the market coming back in, within this region right here, and you still could find your sales happening off this area right here. So also watch out for the region at the top. Could be a slight possibility price could come back in within there. At least if it does, then at least you should be ready for that. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair we had yesterday. Trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities on this one. So you can see the three regions that had been pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, at around 9, price was somewhere within here. So we're expecting price to come back in within this region right here. You can see that during the London session, the market was on the pullback phase. Then during the US session, from around 3 or thereabout, you can see 3, 4:30, a bit of a struggle to pick up, but eventually you can see that the buyers did really come in and the market did push to the upside. So for this one, was a good buy. At least during the US session, price came back in within there. At least you didn't need to manage your trade within there, even if you are targeting areas much, much higher. Consider the pullback did end up happening during the Asian session and the market is back in within here. So for this one, we've adjusted the areas, of course, based on what the story of price is telling us. So we do have the high somewhere within that area right there. We adjusted this one just slightly lower. Just to incorporate where the buyers did start the push going to the upside. And you can see that when the market broke this region to the upside, there was a pullback back in within here. So to some extent, it tells us that maybe through SNR, could be somewhere within that region there. And we do have this area at the bottom right here, which is going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our aggressive buying opportunities. So let's see what happens. Right now, you can see that the sellers are coming in quite aggressive. So we do need them to run out of steam. There's a possibility they might attempt to break this area to the downside. If they do break and the market actually holds, beneath this region to the downside and can't go back up to the upside, then there's a possibility price could be coming back in within here. But if the price does actually end up coming back into the upside and hold above, this region right here, when the market does come back into the upside, then at that point in time, I'll definitely be looking to see whether I can get some buying opportunities there. So make sure that you do watch out for that. Also remember to watch out for the times, like we always point out, 10, which is the London market open. We do have 3, the US session open, and 4:30, which is the New York Stock Exchange open. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't see the 3 regions that Mitch had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. Did actually bounce off this area, although you did possibly need to read this on a smaller time frame to get that buy. And you can see that the market did move to the upside, came back in within there, tapped within there. You can see that during the US session, the market still came back in, within this region right here before now going to the upside once again. So for this one, at least 2 good buying opportunities, although could have been a bit tricky to end up getting them, because you can see that even on the second time, the market just tapped in within that region quite fast. Possibly not something that you could possibly read well, on this time frame. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out for buys. These are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. Right now, we're more or less within a region of resistance. So don't really look for the buys right now, unless maybe the market breaks above this region to the upside, holds above this area, then you could look for the buys. But right now, give these sellers the benefit of doubt. You can see that the buyers came in aggressive yesterday during the US session, but they've been held hostage, by the sellers within this area right here. So just give those sellers the benefit of doubt. You could find the market coming back in, within this area right here once again. Maybe the buyers might need a better price, incite more sellers to come into the market. Of course, as the market starts to come down lower and lower, more and more guys are going to start jumping in on the sells, which is good. So they won't realize that they're being set up. And of course, once the market does pull back in and many guys and many traders start to change their perception, then that's when the big boys will possibly end up showing up. So let's see what happens on this one. And of course, like I pointed out, you could find the market breaking above that region to the upside, but also watch out for the red SNR. That's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our buying opportunities. If the market breaks and holds beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, for the Swiss franc pairs, we do have the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So also a currency pair that we did have yesterday. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the 3 regions right here that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking out for the charts yesterday at a time like this, price was somewhere within this region. And Mitch did illustrate that we're expecting maybe the market to come back in within this area right here, possibly look for the buys. You can see that the market just came shy of this area right here. It seems that there was some sort of an SNR that was holding within this region right here, and the sellers really struggled, to come down lower, come back in within this region. But nonetheless, you can see that price did hold within here, and you can see that the buys did actually end up taking off from within this area, pulled back in after the market broke to the upside, and you can see that the buyers did continue with the push to the upside. So for this one for today, we've adjusted the levels accordingly. So of course, considering the fact that this level over here was really holding yesterday, so that means that today it's a level that we cannot overlook. So we'll definitely be watching out for that region. Could find the market coming back in within this area. But also, on the other hand, you could find that maybe the market might even end up tapping within this region today, considering the fact that the market tapped in within this area twice, went up higher. And of course, if it does come back in within here, it will need a better price. So there's still a possibility you could find the market, just tapping within this region that we did want to see yesterday. But even if it does end up doing that, unless you're highly skilled in terms of your trading, if you do end up jumping in on that buy, it has a bit of risk, or let me say a lot of risk, because you could easily end up getting stuck and the market could end up playing some sort of a ping pong game, between this level right here and this level at the bottom, where you've actually taken your buy. So it would be better for you to actually wait for the market to break above this region to the upside. If it does end up bouncing off here and the buyers do kick in and they push the market back to the upside of this region, at least if you do end up taking the buy there going up, you do have more room to play with to the upside. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But of course, I know that some of you are real cowboys on the charts and you do love taking risk. Well, if you do end up jumping in on that trade, then at least you know what you're signing up for. So do watch out for that. And of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market does come in within that region. It's also going to be an area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our buying opportunities, but it's more or less the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our buys. So that's pretty much it for the Swiss franc pairs. So we're going to move on to the USD pairs now, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells, and you can see the areas that Mitch had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere within this region right here. And in the morning, price was somewhere here. You don't want to see the market maybe set itself up within this region before we could possibly end up looking for some selling opportunities. You can see that Mitch did illustrate that we're expecting price to come down all the way to within this region right here. This was actually a trade that I did manage to take. Unfortunately, it didn't play out as well as it looks on paper right here, because when the market did pull back in within this region right here, unfortunately, I did end up getting stopped out, because when the market did actually tap in within this region, fortunately, I wasn't going to be on the charts for long, so it just set my stop loss at break even and forgot about it. So a real shame. Fortunately, missed out on the 1:6.3, but it's still fine, because you can see that the market just pulled back in within there, got stopped out, and after that, the market has continued to rally down, all through even to the Asian session today. But it's okay. We're never bitter about these things. It's what happens on the charts. But at least one thing is for sure. A break-even close is way better than a loss any day. So for this one for today, we're going to be back at it. So hopefully if I do get a good pullback, I'll be trying to see whether I can get another selling opportunity on this one. So we have adjusted the levels accordingly. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So right now, the market is just bouncing off this region right here. Give these buyers the benefit of doubt. They'll push the market to the upside before they can do it again. So in case that does happen, hopefully the market comes back in within this area here, I will be trying to see whether I can get some sells, within that area right there. Maybe yesterday I should have managed my trade within this region right here, but because sometimes you take the risk and you expect, whatever happens. If the market takes you out and you come out with nothing, well and good. So I definitely knew what I was signing up for. That's why I'm not too bitter. So today, let's see what happens. Hopefully, the market can come down and reach this level to the downside. Maybe I might be a bit wiser today and actually do some money management. But also remember that there's also a possibility price can come up all the way till the top. The buyers can really react to the upside. That can also happen. If that does end up happening, then at least we also do have more room to play with to the downside. So also watch out for that. But remember the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunities. So the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys, and you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere here within some sort of a seller's region. It wasn't a really good area to look for the buys, and you clearly can't see why now. And the market did come down, just need to be patient. And you can see that at around 3, price was somewhere back in, at least within some sort of a buyer's region. And off that area, you can see that the market has really pushed, or it really did end up pushing to the upside. So for this one, the levels are the same. So in as much as the market did move to the upside, but it's not really moved far and beyond, the areas that we're watching out for yesterday. Yes, there was an aggressive push, by the buyers to the upside, but the market has still been contained, within this area right here. So right now we're back at the top. Let's see what happens. Unless the market breaks above this region to the upside, there will be no trade for us in terms of looking for, the buying opportunities. But of course, in case the market does end up breaking, to the upside of that region, and at least we can end up looking for the buys. In case the market does end up pulling back in, within this region right here, then at least we will be trying to see whether we can get, some buying opportunities. Hopefully, if the sellers do end up coming in, but not in a very aggressive manner, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buys maybe during the US session. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And also remember to watch out for the region at the bottom. You still could find the price coming back in within that area. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys as well. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, price was here. We did want to see the market break and hold above this area. It did. You can see that the market just broke and just sat above here. It wasn't really the best of breaches because, it's always best to see the strong breaches, then the market comes back in on a nice pullback that we can end up reading. But this one just broke and sat above here. And you can see that from around 4:30, the market did continue pushing to the upside. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out for buys. So can see that the market has really rallied to the upside quite aggressively. So these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So right now we're more or less within some sort of a seller's region. Don't look for the buys now, but you could find the market coming back in, within this area right here. If it does, then at least you could look for the buys there, and also do watch out for that region right there. So hopefully you've taken note of what the game plan is going to be looking like on that one. So last but not least, for the USDs, so we do have the Australian dollar against the US dollar. Also currency pair we had yesterday. You can see the three regions right there that had been pointed out. The market had just broken above this area to the upside yesterday. You can see that Mitch had illustrated that we're expecting maybe the market to come back in within this region before we do end up looking for the buys. Although when the market did come back in within here, it came back in a bit deeper. And you can see that it did end up really holding within this region for an extended period of time. And this is exactly what I was talking about on the previous, on one of the currency pairs when I was talking about the pullback coming in. If you take the buy, below the level, then you run the risk of being taken, for this sort of an emotional roller coaster before the market actually breaks to the upside. But you can see that this one, once the market did break to the upside, any buys after that would definitely have been much, much better. Just that the pullbacks were also not really coming in like would have expected. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. So we do have the conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative there, and we do have the aggressive at the bottom right here. Right now, the market is coming back in within here. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in, at least somewhere within this region. At least the sellers are coming in nice and slow, which is good. So we'll just have to read what happens within this area. You can see that the fact that the market broke above this region to the upside, this is also a level that's visible on the bigger time frame. So you could find that most probably price will definitely most probably come back in within this area for a retest before it does continue moving to the upside. So the best buying opportunities are definitely hiding within that area. So when the market taps back in within there, I will definitely be on the lookout for some buys. So that's pretty much it for the USDs. So right now we're going to move on to the euros. We're going to do the same, mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So the first one off the line is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. The morning price was somewhere within here. You can see that he illustrated that we did want to see the price come back into the downside and hold below, so that we could look for the sells. But there was also this level right here that he did point out that you could find the market giving some sort of issues. And you can see that there were some real issues within here. During the US session, the market came to the downside, couldn't clear that region, went back to the upside. And you can see that it's like the sellers did need to regroup before they did end up coming in. And during the Asian session, at least they were able to breach, this level to the downside. So for this one for today, the levels are almost the same, just minor adjustments. So the aggressive is still at the top right there. We do have the semi-aggressive conservative somewhere within this region, just slightly higher. Of course, just adjusting based on, what the story of price is telling us. And of course, we do have the conservative somewhere within this region here. So this one, you could find that maybe the market could possibly start to make a move during the London session. You can see that the market has come down. The market has held below. The buyers have even attempted to break to the upside. The sellers have come down. If the market holds within here, you could find some good sells happening within this region right here. At least you want to get your sells as close as possible within that region. And of course, depending on how much of a cowboy and a risk taker you are, you definitely could have your stops either somewhere within here or maybe somewhere within this region in case the market just decides to maybe spike up, just slightly higher than this region right here. But of course, this will be dependent on whether the market actually holds within this area right here. Because of course, if the market comes and actually attempts to break to the upside of this area, then it might not be such a good idea to actually jump in on that trade because there's a high probability and a possibility that you could possibly end up getting stopped out on that one. So just wait and see what happens. Remember, when you're reading the story of price, it's a sequence of candles. It's not just one candle. So we definitely need to see some sort of a hold within this area. And of course, just watching out for the times, like we point out 10, 3, 4:30. You could still find that maybe at around 10:30 or thereabout, that's when the market could actually end up making a move. But this one is not looking too bad. So just make sure that you do keep your eyes out for that one. So the next one, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere down within this area. Wasn't a good time to look for the sells, and you clearly can't see why. The buyers did react to the upside, broke above here. Unfortunately, they couldn't push the market back into the downside. And you can see that the market just bounced off here to the upside to even end up going up higher, all the way to within that region right there. And you can see that from there, that's when the sells did really end up working out. So for this one, the levels are the same. So there was a lot of activity yesterday. But in as much as there was a lot of activity, the market is still being contained within the same areas. And I hope that this also ends up showing you guys that there's nothing that's too far, although there's no price that's too far for price, because you can see that in the morning price was here. It didn't seem like price could end up coming back in all the way to within there, but price did actually find its way all the way to the top there and still did end up coming back down within this region by the end of the day. So it did a full cycle, from down here going up and coming back in within this area. So there's no price that's too far. So for this one, the levels are the same. So let's see what happens. Buyers are coming in, which is okay. You can see that they're starting to slow down. If you look at how they're going up within here and their previous time, which is good. But of course, let's see if we can get the price coming in as close as possible within here. If we do see a sign of the big sellers jumping into the market, then we'll definitely also be getting ready to jump in with them. So to try and see whether we could get the market coming down to within this region right here and possibly break it to the downside. So hopefully you've taken note of that, but the levels are more or less the same as yesterday. So the next euro pair, this is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Clearly can't see the three regions right there, and also an illustration that Mitch had pointed out. Can't see that during the London session, there wasn't much that was going on. Price was just fooling around within this region. During the US session, the market attempted to go to the upside, came back in, and came down quite aggressively. But after that, it's like the sellers have really disappeared. Because one thing you end up wondering is, why is it that the market came down so aggressively within here? And after that, when you end up looking at how the market is moving to the downside, there isn't much of a sign, in terms of the big boys. It's like they just showed up and disappeared. So let's see if they do end up showing up, maybe during the London session, or maybe during the US session. But at least one thing we do know for sure is we'll definitely have to wait for a pullback. So right now the market is coming down. This might not be the best areas to look for the, for the selling opportunities. So we will be waiting to see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere within this area right here. And hopefully if the sellers do end up regrouping and we see some aggressive push, and the market actually holding to the downside of this area, maybe after, some sort of incitement, spikes, you could find maybe some spikes probes within that particular region right there. Maybe that could be the incitement that they need. And after that, if they do jump into the market quite aggressively and you see the market holding, then we could definitely try and see whether we could get some selling opportunities within there. So let's wait and see what happens. But also remember that there's also high probability that price can also come back in within here. You could find that, in case the sellers are not interested with this price right here, you could definitely find the market finding its way back all the way to within this region. There's definitely a price somewhere within there that the sellers might need. And in case that happens, then at least we'll also be ready for that. So moving on into the last euro pair, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. There isn't much of a change moving into today, because you can see that the market is still being contained within this region right here. So in the morning, when we're looking at the price of the charts, price was somewhere within here. You can see that Mitch illustrated that we wanted to see the market come back in within there. It did. If you do end up looking at the times, that's exactly 4:30, which is during the New York Stock Exchange open. Price just came back in, tapped within that area, and you can see that the sales did end up pushing the market back in all the way to within this region. So this one was a good one. Hopefully, maybe the market might start to range within this area. If it does, we're not too sure whether it's going to range. But if it does, then maybe you could find that the top could possibly be somewhere within there. The bottom could be somewhere within this particular region right here. As much as you can see that the bars are really struggling. If you look at how they pushed the market to the upside yesterday and what's happening today, this is pure mediocrity. You even end up wondering what's going on within there. Is it that the sellers came in a bit too aggressive and right now they can't push the market to the upside? But let's just hope that they can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If they can get some strength to just get the market, coming in as close as possible within there, then we could find some good selling opportunities, at least as high up as possible. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, we try and analyze to the best of our ability. The markets do have a mind of their own. If the buyers decide they don't want to come all the way till within this area, or maybe even all the way till the top there, then we'll just have to wait and see if they can break this region to the downside. If they do, then hopefully we will try and see whether we could grab the trades on the pullbacks to continue with the selling opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But in terms of looking for the buys, especially when the market is just sitting or just hovering around this region, might not really be the best of ideas. You might not get the best risk to rewards possible on that one. You're better off possibly even looking for opportunities elsewhere. So that's pretty much it for the euro pairs. So I guess we can move on to the Canadian dollar pairs. So we're going to mix and match up the Canadian dollar pairs with everything on the buy side. So we're going to do the exact same thing that we've done with the others. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get some sells. So do watch out for these three areas right here. We're already seeing that there's a lot of strength that has been coming in on the yen pairs, even just based on the rest of the yens that we've looked at. So let's see what happens on this one. The market hopefully will bounce off this area to the upside. If it does, then we'll try and see whether we could grab some sells, somewhere within this region right here, and we could get the market coming down. Also, remember to watch out for correlation. There's some very good correlation that's happening across the yen pairs. And I mean, most of the time, there's always some very, very good correlation that happens. So if you do find the market pulling back, maybe sets itself up within this region right here, you could also find that that could be something that could be happening on the euro yen, and also the US dollar against the Japanese yen and the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. And you could get all those sales maybe together. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. And of course, also remember, if the market breaks to the downside of this region on the pullback, you could also end up looking for those sales down within this area. But like I pointed out, make sure you also watch out for correlation. I mean, if you also see that it's also happening on the others, then it means that the big boys are definitely back. You just need to try and see whether you can end up jumping in on those sales, either collectively in terms of all the yen pairs, or maybe even if it's individually on one yen pair at a time, it's okay. But at least you will have that confidence to know that the big boys are back. So moving on into the next one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. Also a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one for today, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas right there. Right now, the market is pulling back in. Let's see if we can get the market pulling back in somewhere as close as possible within here. Hopefully, if the sellers do actually end up running out of steam within this region, then we could look for the buys. This level looks like it's hanging in the middle of nowhere, but if you do end up going up a higher time frame, you will see that the market broke above this area to the upside, and hopefully we will get some sort of a pullback, some sort of a retest happening within this region right here, and the market could push to the upside. If this price is not good enough, there's also this level right here, but this is going to be the last level where we're going to be watching out for the buys. If the market breaks and holds below this region to the downside, then I guess maybe these buyers might possibly end up needing to come back in all the way till the bottom to regroup. And I mean, at that point in time, if you're still looking for buys, then you're definitely signing up for trouble. So just make sure that you do watch out for that red SNR. So moving on into the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So this is also a new entrant on our watch list this morning. So for this one, we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So you can see that the sellers are reacting quite aggressively. So let's see if they can slow down at least by the time price gets back in within here. If we do end up getting a slowdown of the sellers, within this region right here, the buyers do end up showing up, maybe something like that, then we will possibly end up looking for those buying opportunities. At least we do need to see that rollover phase happening within this region. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But also remember, price can also come back in within this region. So that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get those aggressive buying opportunities taking place. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list as well. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So do watch out for those three areas right there. Can also see that also on this one, the buyers did end up coming up aggressive, like we've seen on the rest of the Canadian dollar pairs. The market does seem to have hit some sort of a ceiling. Right now, the sellers are reacting. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region. Then hopefully we will try and see whether we can turn the market around, somewhere within this area right here for us to look for the buys. Then hopefully if these buyers do end up stepping back into the scene today, then hopefully we should be blasting, past this region to the upside. So let's just see what happens. But also remember, there's a possibility price could come back in within here. This also does seem like a level that's hanging in the middle of nowhere. But of course, if you end up going up a higher time frame, then you get a bit more context. You can see that the buyers came up quite aggressive. Right now, the most immediate SNR, for them to come back in is this region right here, because these sellers were taken out. So you possibly should expect that the market should come back in within that area for some sort of a retest. If not, then maybe it could come back in, maybe just slightly deeper within here. Then, of course, this is going to be the last year where we'll be trying to see whether I can get buys, because if it breaks beneath this region to the downside, then it means that also maybe this seller might also step back in and you could find the market coming back down. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But ideally, that is what the game plan is going to be looking like in terms of the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar, and of course, for all the currency pairs. So hopefully you've taken note of that. For the guys who've checked in late, feel free to take note of what the watch list is going to be looking like. So I guess we can move on to the indices and the commodities. So you can see the US 30 and also silver have joined the buy side. So we're looking for buys on all of them. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. Wasn't really the best of areas to look for the buys. We wanted to see at least some pullback coming in, or the market at least moving far away from that region and as close as possible within here. Unfortunately, it couldn't get so close within here. There was some sort of an SNR within this area right here. You can see that the market just came back in, tapped this area quite a number of times, and after that, the buyers did attempt to push the market to the upside. Although this one was a bit of a mess that was going on within this region right here, could have been a bit tricky in terms of grabbing the buying opportunities, in as much as the market did move to the upside. But in terms of something clear to jump in on the buys, it just wasn't there. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas. So we've moved the levels higher, of course, based on what the story of price is telling us. So right now, we've hit some sort of resistance within there. Let's see if we can get the sellers reactive. If we can get the price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here, then we will try and see whether we could execute some buying opportunities within this area. It's possible you could find the market coming back in, within this area right here. So we just need to be patient. If not, then I guess we'll just have to wait and see if we can either get the market breaking above here, a nice strong breach to the upside, a nice pullback that we can possibly end up reading, coming back in within that area. Then after that, then hopefully we could possibly try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities off that area. Because right now, you're not too sure what could happen. It's the best thing for you to do is to actually be on the sidelines. And of course, like we always point out, don't really end up forcing any trades on, on any particular currency pair. If it doesn't show you what you need to see, be disciplined enough to actually end up waiting. It will save you money. So let's see what happens on this one. If the market doesn't pull back in within here for us to look for the buys, let me just see if I can end up doing something much better. If you can get, the market coming back in within this area for us to look for the buys, then I guess we'll possibly have to end up waiting. And like I always point out, the best buying opportunities when the market does actually end up breaking to the upside nice and strong. The ones where the market just breaks and sits above here, some of the time those ones can actually end up becoming losses. So just make sure that you're also a bit cautious on that. If you do jump in on them, then at least you do know what you're signing up for in case things do end up going south. So moving on into the US 30. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right here that Mitch had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. In the morning, price was somewhere within this region. So we did want to see the market come to the downside, hold below it. Somehow it did seem like it was holding, but it's like the sellers who pushed the market to the downside just showed up, and then immediately after that just disappeared. And you can see that the market went back up to the upside, pulled back in for some sort of a retest. And after that, you can see that this was more or less the confirmation that we had officially entered into what we call a buyer's zone. So for this one for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for in terms of the buys. Maybe I can just slightly just adjust them, just take them just slightly higher. So we will be watching out for these three areas right here. So right now the market is at the top within there. You don't really want to be looking for your buying opportunities right now, and hopefully we do get some sort of a pullback coming in, either back in within this area, and we could look for the buys there, or if the market does end up coming back in all the way to within here, we're still going to be looking out for buys. If you do get any sells, you still can jump in on them, but just make sure that you're well aware at the back of your mind that the selling opportunities that you're getting are counters, and the buyers could actually check in at any given point in time without any warning. So moving on into silver. Now for silver yesterday, we're trying to see whether we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells, and you can't see the three regions right here that Mitch had pointed out, but we did want to see the market actually break to the downside of this area to look for the sells, and unfortunately that didn't happen. So you can see that the market broke above, held above this region, and you can see that at 3 the market completely took off to the upside. So there was no sell on this one, and of course, I mean, once the market did actually start to hold above this region to the upside, at that point in time, you could have looked for your buying opportunities. And you can see that the market really rallied up quite aggressive. There wasn't much in terms of a pullback, which is something interesting, and also something similar to what we did end up seeing on gold, which we're going to be seeing in a bit. But for this one, for today, definitely we're in buyers. We're in a strong buyer zone. So right now, the market is more or less attempting to break this region to the upside. I guess if it does end up holding above this area, can't see that there's an attempt of the sellers to come down. The buyers have pushed the market to the upside. But I would say that at least if the market does break above this region, because you also don't want to end up signing up for a mini range somewhere within here, and you just end up being taken for a ride, then at least if the market does clear this region to the upside, especially after this pullback coming down, maybe on the next pullback, I think we should be good to go. You could find that the market going on here. It's good to find that the market maybe could possibly end up continuing to rally to the upside. So just make sure that you do end up watching out for that. But also watch out for this region. I mean, if the sellers do end up reacting off this area, because you can see that the market has turned around off this area twice. If that does end up happening again and the market comes back into the downside of this area, then just make sure that you do wait. You could find the market coming back in, either within this region or somewhere within here. Because if you end up looking at the bigger time frame, what you will end up seeing is that move is quite aggressive. We're back in within some sort of a seller's region. And of course, considering the fact that the market broke above this region quite aggressively, there's a high probability price could end up coming back in within this area right here. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. And I think the best buys could definitely be hiding somewhere within here, especially after, the market has given a pullback. These buys at the top here, they're not bad. But there's a possibility you could be joining the 95. Reason being, they are so obvious. Like, everyone can definitely see that market has gone up. Everyone is definitely chasing buys. So you just need to be extra cautious in terms of how you end up approaching those buys at the top. At least if the market gives a pullback, then that's good. Quite a number of people will definitely end up getting stopped out, and also switching their mentality, from the buy and start looking for sales, especially after they do end up getting stopped out. So last but not least, we do have gold. So for gold, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right here that Mitch had pointed out. So you can see that in the morning, we wanted to see the market hopefully break and hold above here. You can see that the market broke, pulled back in quite fast, and after that, really took off to the upside, quite aggressively. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the pullbacks coming in within these regions right here. And of course, this was the market breaking off this range. Remember that we've been in a range on gold, I think, for the last 3 weeks or so. We've been holding within this area right here. And this was the previous high, that the market had actually gotten high up until, and there were quite a number of attempts, by the buyers to break that region to the upside. But of course, I think after the buyers did end up loading up their orders yesterday, I think when the initial jobless claims did end up coming out, you can see that the market did finally break free of that range. Definitely the highest level that, or the highest price that gold has ever been, like ever. So even if you were to look at it in terms of the monthly, and definitely see all the way from back 1883, gold has never been there. So this is definitely the highest. We don't really have any levels to end up watching out for at the top here. So I guess we'll just end up having to go with, how the market does actually end up moving, because we don't have a reference from the past. So right now, as we know, this is the highest level. So we'll just have to end up watching out for that. Seems like there's some sort of a push by the buyers somewhere within here, some sort of an SNR within this region, just based on what happened yesterday. And right now, the buyers who are pushing up are definitely sitting somewhere within this region right here. So for as long as we're holding above this red SNR, the buyers needs to look for buys. If the market breaks above this region to the upside, you could look for buys. But I don't really know where we're heading after that. So I think you just have to make sure that you really do some very good money management and keep tabs with your trades. But at least if the market does end up coming back in within the middle SNR, at least you do know that the high level should be the next level that you should be targeting. And of course, if it does end up coming in lower, then you also do know that from the red SNR going up, at least you do also end up having some 2 levels going up that you can also end up watching out for and possibly end up managing your trade. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. And of course, remember, if we do get any sales, just remember that the selling opportunities that you're taking are definitely some counters that could also possibly end up giving you issues, because you're strongly within some sort of a bias. And also, if to go up the higher time frame, especially on the 1 hour time frame, in fact, just to get more context, you can see that in as much as the market has gone up to the upside, remember that the pullback can also come back in deep. You could also find that the market could also end up coming in all the way to within here, the top of the range, to just bounce off that region. But at least based on the time frame that we're looking at, as far as we know, our job is to look for buying opportunities for as long as we're holding above here. If the market does actually end up breaking beneath this region to the downside, and we do actually end up getting a hold, at that point in time coming down, if you do end up looking for the sells, then at least you could look for them more confidently. Don't be overconfident with them, because you could find that before even maybe if the market does end up turning around, maybe there will be an attempt, maybe a second or a third attempt by the buyers to break above this region to the upside. And if they cannot, that's when you'll definitely find the sellers coming in. So also don't end up being smart, because I know that sometimes people try to be smart and they're like, okay, I think the market is going up, the whole world is thinking buys, so I'm going to be smart and I'm going to sell. I don't think you're going to be able to sell against the whole world and the big boys combined. So just make sure that you really do end up reading the story of what's going on and end up being a bit more realistic in terms of the expectations. So I guess we can end up looking at the Q&A. So I see Alan Ronald there. Good to see you, Alan. You're saying, hi, John. Thanks a lot. Always good to see you here, Alan. Karibu sana. I also see Caroline Mwaniki there saying, good morning. Where there is a supply zone and a demand zone, must there be a consolidation? Most of the time there will be. Reason being, the big boys need to take a bit of time to end up loading their orders, because based on the lot sizes that they're going to be taking, it's very hard for them to actually end up getting filled at once, because it's just not possible. So that's the reason why you find that the market will normally tend to range within particular regions, like you're calling them the supply and the demand zones, because within that region they're actually filling up their orders. So as the market is ranging within a particular region, so let me see if I can illustrate even somewhere. In fact, you can even end up using, let me see if I can get the range that we did end up having on gold. Like, for example, when the market was ranging within this region right here, of course, on the 15-minute, it's a massive range. But you know, when they're looking at it, especially on the 4-hour time frame and whatever, the range is not that big. So within a region like this, if they're looking for buying opportunities, of course, they're going to take their first buys. You know, within here, the market moves to the upside, comes back in within here. They fill in more orders within there to actually end up going up because they can't fill all the orders that they need to fill in within this region right here. You know, if they need, like, let's say 500,000 lots, that's not going to happen at once. You know, so it's possibly maybe they buy maybe like 20,000 there, you know, 10,000 within this region. Every time the market comes back in within this area, they keep pumping in orders. The moment when they end up pumping in their last orders, that's when you find that the market will actually end up taking off to the upside. So yes, you will normally find consolidations happening within regions where we do have supply and demand. So that's a very good question, Caroline Mwaniki. So I hope that answers your question. So I'm not really seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. So we also do need to get ready to see what opportunities we can get during the London market open, and also need to get ready for the AMP as well. So for the guys who are joining us for the AMP, of course, we'll see you in a bit. Remember, you also can end up joining the AMP. We do have 2 classes left. We do have the October class and the November class. So you can end up signing up for that. Remember, if you do end up going to our website, www.afriforex.com, you definitely can end up getting that information. So you can end up, you know, putting yourself on the waiting list, and then our team will get in touch with you, depending on which class you do want to end up joining. If it's the October class or if it's the November class, then at least just also make sure that you do end up indicating, and we'll definitely see how best we can end up helping you. Also, if you do end up going to our site, I mean, if you do click on the page, you will get more information on what the AMP entails. But it's very important that you do also end up doing at least the masterclass, so that at least you can also end up moving a bit more faster. So I guess that's pretty much it. I want to thank guys so much for making the time to be here with us this week. Like I always point out, I know you're busy people, but you always take the time to be here with us each and every morning. We don't take that for granted. The fact that you give us a piece of your day each and every day. And I hope that you guys are learning a lot. And of course, if you're still struggling in terms of trading, keep pushing. This thing is not easy, but it is doable. And that's the reason why we are here, so that at least we can also give you that much needed motivation and knowledge that you do need, so that you can make it on the charts. So with that, happy trading, guys. And bye for now. Guess we'll see you guys Monday morning. So may the peace be with you, and God bless.